Hello and welcome to the 40K Parlay Podcast. This is Chapter 1, Book 5, Part 3. Yes, we're going to go into Part 3. A couple things that I forgot to talk about in the last two episodes, or at least only mentioned in passing in the last two episodes, I'd like to talk a little bit more about. And first and foremost is the glaring omission to the last episode would be dry brushing, which is an absolute excellent technique that I would use after your detailing step. So after you've put in all your details and then gone and done all your touch-ups of your base colors, I would let that dry. And then I would get into dry brushing, which is a lot of what it sounds. It is using a flat dry brush to just lightly coat paint onto a miniature. So I believe for most of my dry brushing, I used a flat 8 or a flat 4 brush. And what I would do is just put the absolute minimal amount of paint on a dry brush, and then take it and put it on a paper towel, and then just keep lightly brushing the paper towel until it looks like there is no paint coming off on the paper towel. And then there's a cool little trick I learned where if you go to put the brush, I mean, you could sit there with the paper towel and try and get it all off, and then it'll look like it's all off, and you'll go to put it on a model, and now you'll have this big ding of whatever color. I've used dry brushing mainly for metal, to make metal look scuffed and scarred, to make vehicles and armor look worn down. Like it's, been through some, weather and combat. It is an absolute great technique for doing things like that. Or when you have something like a cloak, I believe with Eldrad, I painted his robes black, and then I took shades of gray and just gently dry brushed that into the tops of the folds of his cloak to give it some depth. And that worked out really well. Just some really, really nice coloring, and it just gives it this just really ornate, beautiful look to the back of the cape. But like I said, so if you're going to go to apply it to the model itself, what you're going to need to do is the best thing that I've seen to do is to take it and test it on the back of your hand, just on the palm. Make a fist, and then just right at the top, just put a little bit on there, and then just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just go over your skin a few times and see what color is coming off. If next to no color is coming off, then it's ready to be put on the model. If you're still, like for instance, when I was doing Flux of like Leadbelcher, if I was, if it was still looking gray when I was brushing, the skin of my hand, then I knew that it was too much paint to put on the model. So when it became light enough on the back of my hand, then I knew that it was perfect to just lightly coat some color into the models that I've happened to dry brush. Most of my Ulthway was finished with dry brushing. They're all almost all of them are wearing some form of armor or whatnot, and it was cool to give the Wind Rider bikes a lot of flavor by just sitting there and just putting just little light brushes, just little light touches of the brush into onto the model, and it gave it this amazing wear and tear look. You can also use it to lighten up areas very quickly. So, for instance, on the Pure Strain Gene Stealers I painted, I believe I used Kislev Flesh, and then I dry brushed just a little bit of the Flayed One Flesh over it to lighten it up a little bit, to give it just a little bit more depth to the model. And I think it made a huge amount of difference. I'll probably do a lot of dry brushing on the rock grinder to give it a lot of wear and tear. After I do detailing, I'll probably either do muddy or bloody detailing on that, and then after that I'll probably do some dry brush to give it a little bit of wear and tear, like it's just been banged around a little bit trying to get to the battlefield, and doing performing other tasks on the abattoir planet of Fleischgate. So I figured that would be a really nice aesthetic there. But it adds so much to models, especially like I've said, my experience with using it for metallics has just been absolutely awesome. If I was painting like a Gundam model, or just stay within the world of 40K and just like a Tau, it would just be really cool to just sit there and just lightly kind of brush over the edges to make it look like this thing has been around, that this thing has seen some combat, and it just gives it a little bit of wear and tear. When I first started painting 40K, I really wanted to do my paint jobs in a more pristine style, where they look like toy soldiers as opposed to little realistic miniatures. I figured that would just be a more realistic goal for me, and the more I painted, I realized that wow, there's all these other techniques and everybody's doing this, and I saw someone, it might have been a White Dwarf, that had made a ton of Space Marines, and all their boots just look so muddy and dirty. And when I first saw that, I was like, man, that looks just so hideous on the model. And now I'm just like, wow, that was such an awesome idea. And I've actually put Nuln Oil, I think, on the feet of both of my Wraith Lords, because it just makes it look like it's been stomping around and there's been getting soot and dirt and char all over it. It looks cool. Which brings me to something I'm not going to talk about in this video. There, like I said, if there were 3 omissions from the last 2 parts to this, the last 2 parts of Chapter 5, I would say, one is obviously dry brushing, and 2 is basing. I have not done a lot of basing or experimented with basing myself, and I want to do that, and I want to dedicate an entire episode to basing. I have recently ordered more. I know I've been harping about the Necromunda bases and how cooler, just how much more cool they are than the standard Warhammer 40K ones. So I actually went ahead and ordered some Necromunda bases, so I can build up the rest of my Gene Stealer cult and put them all on Necromunda bases. I think that's going to be awesome. But as far as designing the base and cleaning rocks with acids and things like I haven't gotten into that. I haven't put sand on a base or glued anything onto a base that wasn't 40K specific. So just before I move on to the next segment, I just want to say that yes, I have not talked about basing, but specifically for the purpose of the idea, that will be its own episode. Basing will will be something that I will talk about completely on its own, because I want to cover it in detail. I want to cover, the different kinds of bases, sizes, easy ways to cover things. Like I guess it's just all things that I have not explored yet. Still being into the hobby, I'm still, building and painting armies, and I'm still trying to like pump out my armies, and I'm not too worried about how the bases look. So, but fair to say, I think that the Necromunda bases that I just ordered are gonna probably end up under a good portion of a Genestealer cult, and I think after the Genestealer cult's finally finished, and I get the Magus all assembled and painted, because that will be yeah. Why don't we talk about that real quick? While building things like War Masters, or just champions, or even unit leaders, just anything that you want to put just a little bit more pride into, it might be worth pulling out the hemos and holding the pieces with the hemos and painting everything piece by piece. I will say that I recommend cutting everything out. Sprue it first, sand it down first, make sure everything fits. When I built my last Wraith Lord, I think its head was just on with some blue tack until the final steps. I didn't glue it until then because I wanted to put detail on the back of the strut, and I wanted to do just a little bit of dry brushing on the head to give just a little bit of a light perspective, which is another thing that dry brushing is good for. So both of my Wraith Lords have golden domes. So I took just a little bit of Runefang, and I dry brushed that just a little bit on one side to just give it a little bit of shadow. I also used I think I used Runefang as well to tarnish both of the Wraith Lords and just give them a little bit of a wear and tear and a much more mechanical feel, instead of just this big painted stick figure mech. I think dry brushing it really gave it some purpose. But anyways, so back to painting something like your War Master. I think it is worth it to paint it last, because by then you'll have a total feel of your army. You'll know what you're like Eldrad was the last thing I painted for my Ulthwé, and I'm glad I did, because I knew exactly what I wanted when I painted him. My army had already been set, and I was able to just put out everything that all my characters, and look at them and just say, this is what I want to do with Eldrad. And when I think that he, insofar, is probably the best mini I've painted. That's not saying much, but as far as minis that I've painted, I think he's the one I'm the most proud of. I put a lot of a lot of fun, like detail and a lot of time, and I mean there was I'd say probably about 3.5, 4, maybe 5 hours alone just into that model, painting it. And just, I can't tell you how many other times I was just sitting there making decisions. He has a chest piece on him that I kept separate and to dry brush gold, so the brushes didn't end up leaving gold flecks on any of his robes. I mean, there's just numerous reasons why you should do your War Master last. And like I said, really take your time. When I plan to do my Magus for the Genestealer cult, I will probably paint it with the hemos, like just holding the pieces and, painting it intricately and then assembling it very carefully. Something to note, if you paint before you assemble, especially with the model builder paint, with the Citadel paint or airplane glue, anything with ether in it, if you go to put that on paint, it will smear the paint if you move it. So make sure that if you are a person that has made the decision to paint and then glue, just make sure that this is something that you are very aware of, is that it will, like, the paint will move. Like it just it'll straight up move. I have to. The base of one of my Wraith Lords has a little bit of a mispaint on it. I'm gonna when I do basing, I'll go back and fix it. But for sure, I made that mistake where I went to put a foot down and it slid and it took the paint and the technical right with it. So yeah, just another thing. Like the glue will straight up move your paint, so be careful. All right. So, dry brushing, we talked about that. Painting your War Master as a separate entity, like from your army, and doing it last. Like I said, I think that's just a really good tip. You want that model to look the best, and taking the time to sit there and hold it with the hemostats and to paint every individual piece, I think will pay off for you in the end. It'll look very good, and hopefully if you don't just go ape, most people will notice the amount of effort that you put into something. Let's just say that. All right, so the third thing, like I said, basing would have been 2. The other glaring omission to the chapter thus far. And the third thing is an afterthought for some people, but I think once it was shown to me how to do it properly, I think it's an absolutely awesome thing to do, and that is using your decals, your transfer. Excuse me. Sorry, I hit the microphone there. A little bit of technical difficulties, folks. My apologies. Something that is definitely worth doing is transfer sheets. Putting decals on your model, just giving it that extra little touch. There's nothing that says you have to. And for instance, my Genestealers, there is no transfer sheet for the Genestealer Colts. I wish there was. It'd be so nice to, have some of those symbols. But currently, as far as I know, there isn't one. But for, I've got a ton of elf ones at this point. I have tons of Eldari transfer sheets. Only one Harlequin sheet. I only have one unit of them so far. But as far as transfers go, all right, let's start. So, just for instance, we'll just, because I did Ulthwé on my Wraith Lords, I would go to the transfer sheet, find the transfer that I like, put it on a surface that I can cut on. If you don't want to scratch your palette, don't use, like me, if you're using a tile, don't put it on the palette. A nice thick piece of cardboard, like corrugated cardboard, not just like a piece of poster board. Something that you can put a razor blade against. Don't be stupid, I guess what I'm trying to say here, because we're going to be using X-Acto knives. So, I like the X-Acto knife over a scissors, and the reasons why is because you can just cut out the symbol you need, as opposed to cutting through the entire sheet like you would with a pair of scissors. So that's just my logic on that. So we'll just go with the example. Like I said, we're doing the Wraith Lords, and one of the smaller to medium Ulthwé symbols. I take my X-Acto knife, I cut it out, I find a really just like a little bit of water and like a custard glass will do. Just cut it out, and this is where curved hemos come in really handy. Another nice little tool to have, like I said, to have in your toolkit. And like I said, you can order a set off of Amazon for near dirt. And a good thing is take the corner of the transfer and kind of maybe link it onto the hemo, and then put it into the water and let it sit for a few minutes. Not too long. I'd say like 2 minutes, 3 minutes at most. And then I'd pull it out with the hemo. I would take a small brush and lightly put just a little bit of water on the area where you want the transfer to go. And I would take, like I said, still holding the decal with the hemos. This is to me, you can use tweezers too, but just something small to grip this so you can put it against your model. And then what happens next is take the brush that you have that's wet and then just kind of, as best you can, brush the decal off onto the model in the direction you want it to be. And then once it gets there, use your brush very, very lightly, touching it to move it around the surface of the model till it sits where you want it to sit. And then just slowly press it down with the brush very, very gently. Like, you don't want to put any pressure on it. You just want a little bit of the decal to rest firmly on the model, and then just pull it off and make sure it's laying flat. You don't want to freak out. Like, if it's, if it's not moving fast, just be patient with it. Because like I've been like, why isn't this thing moving fast? Why isn't this thing moving fast? And then the next thing I know, it's at a 45-degree angle, on another part of the model's body, and I'm desperately trying to get it off with tweezers and get it back onto the spot where I need it to be. This has happened multiple times. So be patient with transfers. And like I said, it helps to know, which ones you're going to use, and then cut it out with an X-Acto knife. And then you try to give yourself just enough of a lip with the decal to be able to pick it up with tweezers or hemostats. And then just let it, soak in that water for about 2 minutes. Pull it out. Not a lot of water either. Like not a shot glass. Like, just enough water in the bottom of something that's shallow. So, I mean, you're just putting it in there, and you're not going to have to pull this thing, out of 16 ounces of water. Like, you don't want that. Like, you just need a little bit of water to get this thing wet. Some people will soak it for, like 30 seconds and then put it on a paper towel and let it sit. That's fine too. That also works. It'll eventually release. I just think if you have it in, like, with the hemos in, some water for about 2 minutes, you'll be fine. And like I said, just keep it shallow, pull it out, and then just take a wet brush, put just and use that wet brush and just put a little bit of water on the area you want to apply it to. Hold the tweezers or the hemos with the decal up to where you want it to be, and then just lightly brush it onto the model where the water is, and while you're brushing, also try and angle it so it's going to go on the way and in the direction that you want the decal to be. This will just save you so much headache. If you have to apply something and then spin it, you can rip into the decal. You could mess up the paint job. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with decals. So I've lost my patience with them twice, and had to correct mistakes quickly. So as far as decals go, just try to just take your time and be patient and really have an idea of where you want it to be. Like, measure it ahead of time. Look at it, make sure it's going to be perfect for the banner you want to put it on, or make sure that it's going to work right with the folds of the the clothes of the unit that you're using. Just little things to think about like that, I think, are pretty important details. So, oh boy, I don't think that there's too much more. I know I said that last time, and we still ended up talking, for a solid, 58, minutes to an hour there. But I really think that maybe we should, just call it for the week. Just have a nice, light, episode and wrap up chapter 5, and we can talk really quickly about something else. I did go off brand this weekend. I went to the paint shop, and I decided that, I know I bitched about the Emperor's Children. Oh boy, are we gonna have to put up a meme? I bitched about Emperor's Children a lot in the last episode. There's also, I believe, Fulgrim Pink, which may be a little bit lighter, but it still has like this odd candy colored brightness to it. I needed a couple paints, so I trudged down to the shop. I picked up 2 pots of Citadel. Hold on, let me pull these bad boys out here. Let's see what did I grab here. I grabbed. All right, we're gonna have some fun pronouncing this one. Ushabti-bone. I grabbed Ushabti-bone, and I grabbed Cadian Flesh Tone. I'm going to be painting a lot of flesh tone in the near future, so I definitely wanted to pick up those 2 colors to add to my palette with some of the other ones that I already have in there that I like to paint flesh with. But while I was there, I figured I'd go over. I was looking for Vallejo specifically. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. A lunch. I just ate. I can't be hungry. I don't know. That had to have been just being hit in the head too much. Anyways, back to lunch, folks. I decided to go off brand, and a couple people online have mentioned Vallejo to me and what a great brand it is. Unfortunately, the shop was completely sold out. They usually sell kits of it at my one of my local game shops. I got to talking with one of the managers, and he's like, "Have you tried Army Painter at all, or Army Painter War Paints?" And I'm like, "No, I have not." And he's like, "Well, they have this 2.0 series now, because I guess there was a lot of issues with the last series of paint they made, so they have these new and improved 2.0s. They didn't cost me any more money than Army Painter War Paints normally would have, but I just figured it was worth a mention because I think it's." Other than the bases that I used in the on the spruing and gluing episode, where I put the Necromunda figures on the aftermarket bases, this is really the first aftermarket thing that I've picked up. So let's talk about what I did get. I got Elf Green. I don't have any green currently in my palette. My buddy Bill is always kind enough to loan me green when I do need it. But I thought it was about time that I got my own, and this olive color, or olive drab, I should say. It's just, this elf green would just be perfect for military uniforms and colors and stuff like that. So I got that. I needed some gray tones, so I bought Darkstone and Field Gray. They're about 2 grays apart in the Army Painter War Paint system. So there's some definite contrast between these 2 colors. I've made the mistake of just going 1 shade lighter and then going to just do some detailing with it, or some dry brushing to add some contrast, and I'll end up having to put an even lighter layer on top of that. And I have just decided that I'm going to skip that step. I just go 1 step lighter now with my grays, with any shades, honestly. I like to go 1 shade lighter and give it a lot more color. So I got the Field Gray and I got the Dark Stone, and we're going to give those a whirl. I want to do some gray clothing for the Fleshgate Army, and I think that would be absolutely awesome. And of course, I had to grab a pink, so I grabbed Centaur Skin. This looks amazing. And all I'm going to say is if this paint does not look like it, like I want it to look when it dries, I may cry, because it is so beautiful, and it is near exactly what I have been looking for to paint this rock grinder, which I'm hoping we have some nice dry weather in New England this weekend, so I can finally get some minis painted, primed up for painting. I'll probably spend a day just priming minis that have been built. Anyways, folks, yeah, I just wanted to say that coming soon, I'll be able to talk about the Army Painter war paints, and I'll let you know if I am going to, go off brand and experiment a little bit more often, or if I find it to be an absolutely atrociously horrible experience and I'm going to stick with Citadel. Anyways, folks, let's call it. This is the 40K Parlay Podcast, Chapter 1, Book, or no. Whoa. Do over. Folks, this is the 40K Parlay Podcast. This usually happens right in the beginning, and I can just edit it out, and I just restart the podcast a ton of times. But tonight it is happening at the end of the episode. Folks, I have not had enough caffeine today. That is just... this was originally going to be called the 40K coffee break. Just a fun little fact. But I figured I didn't want to endorse any narcotic necessarily. But I guess the cat's out of the bag now. I am a Dr. Pepper fiend, and I should probably go have one. Folks, let's try this. Let's do this. All right. This is the 40K Parlay Podcast, Book 1, Chapter 5, Part 3. We touched on applying decals. We completely skirted around basing, and we talked about dry brushing.